Hey there, it's David, the ADHD LGPC, and today we're talking about mindfulness in DBT, brought to you by this moment, right here, right now. So, what is DBT mindfulness? Well, dialectical behavioral therapy and mindfulness in that is the ability to exist in this moment or in any moment without being focused on the future or the past, without being judgmental of anything going on, and being able to just fully throw yourself and immerse yourself in that moment. So, how do we do that? Well, the first thing we look at is what's called the wise mind. This is when we take the reasonable mind, the emotional mind, and we combine them together. The reasonable mind is the mind that you use when you intellectualize things. When you're being cool, you're being rational, you're looking at, okay, what are the pros and cons of this? What's the most effective thing I can be doing right now? How can I best utilize this situation? That's the reasonable mind. Imagine almost like a math problem. Then we have the emotional mind. This is where all of the emotional side comes from. The I'm very happy, so I'm going to exclaim out in joy, or I'm angry, I'm going to shout at someone. This tends to be very hot, very passionate, very in the moment. And both these are good, but when you utilize only one of them at a time, it can be dangerous. For instance, if you use only the reasonable mind, you tend to negate a lot of the emotional impact things will have. You don't count for what brings you joy, what brings others joys. It's just logical of what's most effective. But if you only use the emotional mind, often you find yourself in the trouble of acting very impulsively, and you do exactly what you want and what that moment feels like you should do. But that's not always the case. And so the wise mind is when you take both together and use the emotional mind to give value to things, to act on your emotions, but you balance it with a reasonable mind for the decisions of why you should do what you should do. And so what we look into then is what we call the what skills, or the what even is mindfulness. Well, first, it's observing what's around you. What is going on? What is it you see? What is it that's actually happening around you? And then once you're able to do that, you start describing what's going on around you, but only the facts of the situation. You describe the facts of oh, that cloud looks like blank, or that flower looks like blank. This person is walking. And you don't put any judgments on it, no thoughts about it. And then you also try to participate fully in whatever's going on in that moment. So if you're playing a sport, you are playing that sport. If you are listening to a song, you're listening to it fully. You're singing along with it. And how we try to do this is with no judgments. And so when you see something happening or you're describing what's happening around you, you take away judgments of good and bad, pretty or not, or anything you might have. You take those judgments out of the situation. When you do that, you're able to more effectively be in that situation because you're not busy judging what's happening, you're experiencing what's happening. And with that as well, if you find yourself judging at this time, that's okay. You should, what we aim to do is not judge ourselves for judging. As soon as we learn how to speak, we learn how to judge things. We start calling things good, bad, safe, dangerous, as soon as we learn language. And so learning how to not be judgmental about things is very difficult because you have to kind of unlearn. So when you do fall back into that habit of oh, I see that, I don't like that. To be able to take a moment and be oh, hey, I had that quick judgment. Let's look again at the facts of the situation. Or your friend does something that upsets you, that's bad that they did that. Okay, let's take a step back. I'm feeling that it's bad, but I noticed that. Let's look at the facts of what actually happened. Is this effective for the situation? Then we have what's called one mindfully, which is when you do something, you do it. And that's what you're doing. So for instance, if you're eating a meal, you're not doing anything else. You're just eating a meal. You're making tea, well, you focus on making tea. You're singing a song, you're singing that song. Learning how to completely put yourself into the activity you're doing. And lastly, we look at effectiveness. How do you effectively accomplish what you're doing? And that's how you integrate the wise mind. So let's say you want to borrow someone's car and it's really important to you. Is shouting at the top of your lungs, telling your friends it's really important, going to help effectively? Probably not as much as talking to them and asking and explaining the reasoning. So you ask yourself, what's effective in this moment? And so with all those together, the wise mind, the what skills of what even is mindfulness, and how we go about it, that's the core part of DBT mindfulness. Of course, there's more to it, and we'll discuss it later, but I hope this was a good overview to deciding or discovering what is mindfulness. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day.